Have you ever felt like the world is against you and no matter what you do, you're just not getting ahead? I'm sorry to say, you might be stuck in the victim's mindset. While it might be fun and interesting to blame other people, it might be the very reason why you're not living your best life. My name is Vergia Davidson. I'm a mental health clinician. I help managers to keep top performers happy at work. I want to share some helpful tips to navigate this. Let's talk about it. So I once had a client that no matter what, it was someone else's fault. Unfortunately, when he came to session, it was more, nobody likes me, nobody cares, I'm done. And he just wanted to feel validated to say he was right. When people invited him to things, he often said no. Whenever a situation happened, he often just talked about the other person's issue and really minimized his role in doing things. It was really challenging for him because from his perspective, this didn't feel good. He literally felt like the world was against him. But then on the other hand, when people were interacting with him, it became really frustrating because it was very hard for them to feel heard or even seen when the opinion was so different. So what is the victim mindset? You might be like, Vergia, you're sharing these things, but does it actually make sense? So the victim mindset it's a belief that external forces control your life, leading you to feel helpless and powerless. Common characteristics is constantly seeking recognition, accusing others of being immoral, unfair, or even selfish, while seeing yourself as the moral person or the ethical person. You constantly lack empathy, and there's a constant rumination of being the victim or constantly worrying about things that happened in the past and how people took advantage of you. I'm not saying that you can't have things happen, but if you're noticing that most of the situations you are playing the victim, you might be stuck in this type of mindset. So what are some of the dangers of having the victim mindset? I've seen people countless times struggle with depression, anxiety, because they just don't really understand why everyone's out to get them. Missed opportunities where they don't put themselves out there, they don't try because they automatically think they are going to fail or someone's going to sabotage them. And as a result, you miss out on your goals, you miss out on actually being the best version of yourself. Another danger is the relationship strain. If you notice you are engaging with someone that has the victim mindset, it might be very one-sided. It's like, I'm only doing things to make you happy. Or you might notice that that person almost feels like you owe them something, or you need to do things their way, or they either cut you off or they say, I just can't deal with it. So the danger is eventually that individual, their social network gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then they run the risk of being isolated. So how do we break free from this victim mindset? It's important that we reframe our victim mindset to a hero mindset. What are the things that I can do in the moment to help my circumstance? If I'm noticing that I'm always looking at, woe is me, there's a problem with the world, everyone is about to get me, then if this is our first go-to, we know that, we definitely need to reframe it into a helpful, more productive way of seeing things. Be a journalist by taking note of what's going on. What are some of the triggers for you? If you notice that, okay, when this happens, I tend to just feel helpless. I tend to feel hopeless. And then note the things that you are trying to do to get outside of the victim mindset, maybe talking to someone about it. And I know it's not always easy to share, or maybe just sharing the situation and getting an objective point of view. And the more you kind of note these things down, you can document your transformation, and then you're no longer stuck in this helpless state. The other thing is building your resilience. Resilience is your ability to keep on going despite things being tough. I know this is a new way of thinking. So gearing your mind to say, this is going to be hard. This is going to be a new mindset. But the more I practice, the more I actually put myself in uncomfortable situations, the more I can try to learn from the other person's perspective, is the more stronger these muscles will be when it comes to taking a more active role in my life and the outcomes. Face your fears. When we face our fears head on, we actually teach ourselves that we can do it. When we avoid our fears, when we blame other situations, and when we blame other people, we don't take accountability. And then what ends up happening is when we reflect on our lives, there's a lot of regret. And with the regret, of course, low mood, anxiety comes around. And the hardest thing I've realized is that when people, even myself, when I choose not to face my fears, later on I'm like, oh, I could have so done it. And then regret takes root. So it's so important to push through the discomfort. Validate your feelings. Validate, but don't get stuck. It's okay to say, I'm not the best at this. I'm learning something. This is hard. This isn't easy. This is new for me. It's okay, but give yourself a time limit. Don't be saying this is not easy for me, or I can't do this. This is not me. And you're saying this for like 10, 15 years. Then it's like, is this now just a way for you to cope? Is this another victim mentality to allow other people that's listening to you to give you the permission to be the victim? So it's really important, even if you give yourself the validation, but just don't stay there. So as you take action and actually be an active role in your own life, seek support. And it's not easy for people that are experiencing the victim mindset, because over time, there's this learned helplessness. So sometimes we need to lean on other people, whether it's a professional, whether it's someone that we can trust or a mentor, to help highlight the areas that we might not see. And the more we take action, the more we face our fears, and the more we begin to learn and unlearn and learn and unlearn the things in our lives that are holding us back, the more we'll feel competent. We'll feel confident enough to walk in this newness. If you're someone of faith, I would encourage you to lean into your faith and ask for help and the support, because sometimes we can't do it on our own. Actually, most times we cannot do it on our own. But with the right support and asking that, the right people can be in our lives can really make the difference. It's so important to recognize manipulative behaviors. There are 3 tactics that often happens when somebody is manipulative. There's guilt, they shift blame, and they focus on the past hardships. If you notice that these 3 things are happening, this is a huge manipulative strategy. The other thing to look out for is the contrast in vulnerability. Sometimes people can see that you have a kind heart, or they can see that you tend to say yes. Know the difference between when someone's truly being vulnerable and needing the support versus someone that's just using it as a tactic to manipulate you. I've struggled a lot with that in my life, where sometimes I want to help, but then I realize the person is really using this. So it does take time, and ask for help. And for me, this is something where if I'm unsure, I have people in my life to help, to support me. And even if I'm on the end of being manipulative, I've given people permission to speak into my life, to say, hey, that's not okay. That was actually selfish. And being at the point where you're like, okay, if I want to be the best version of me and my best self, I'm going to have to deal with some hard things too. And look out for a healthy relationship, because in a manipulative environment, the relationship is one-sided and it becomes more about the other person. And sometimes you'll even realize when the person is in need, that's the only time they'll share with you, and they're living their lives, but all of a sudden, when they need the help, that's when they all of a sudden reach out. So it's so important to know the difference between someone that is basically using you versus someone that is actually, they're just going through a tough time and they need some help, and maybe they're just busy. And that takes some time to navigate that. If you want to learn more about being manipulated, check out this video.